Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us to this webinar on the lessons learned from grid-connected renewable energy flagship projects in the ECOWAS region that ECREEE, the ECOWAS Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, is organizing. My name is Daniel, and I will moderate and introduce my colleagues who are presenting today. Some information about the webinar: you can ask any moment a question during the session. Just select the questions pane on your screen and type in your question. At the end of the webinar, we will have 20 minutes for answering your questions. The webinar is also being recorded, and it will be available on the ECREEE YouTube channel and also on the specific section for webinars on the ECOREX, the ECOWAS Observatory for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. The agenda of today is presented here. My colleague Mohamed Yuba Sokona will present an overview of the grid-connected renewable energy flagship projects in ECOWAS region. Then Ana Monteiro will present the specific case of the Kubelik wind project in Cabo Verde. At the end, as said before, we will have 20 minutes for questions and answers. The duration of the whole webinar will be 1 hour. Before starting, I want to inform you as well that our colleagues from the ESMA project at the World Bank have just launched the new Global Wind Atlas that you will find on globalwindatlas.info. All countries now have access to the latest wind energy data. It is an excellent tool to help support planning and initial site scoping for wind energy development. You can display several layers and graphs, indicators, etc. You can download the data in different formats and also maps and GIS data which will be available soon. User-friendly, well-designed open data platform. This tool follows the launch of the Global Solar Atlas in January 2017, meaning that countries have two powerful tools to help support planning and initial site scoping for solar and wind energy development. You will find also access to these tools from the ECOREX platform of ECREEE, the ECOWAS Observatory for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. So now let's start with the first point of the agenda, the overview of the grid-connected renewable energy flagship projects in ECOWAS region, which will be presented by Mohamed. Mohamed, please, the word is yours.
All right. Thank you, Danny, for the introduction. So my name is Mohamed Yuba Sokona, and I am a renewable energy advisor at ECREEE, financed by GIZ. I first of all would like to apologize in case there is any delay or any cut because my internet connection is not very strong right now. So I think the first is about why we are doing this webinar and this overall project of disseminating experiences with RE flagship project. It's basically because the region has set some targets for renewable energy penetration in 2020 and in 2030, and this these targets for grid-connected renewable energy we thought would be best achieved if additionally to setting up the right enabling environment, the first project that were the lighthouse project or the flagship project in the region are documented and are disseminated to the wider audience in the region, whether it's public sector, private developer, and anybody that is involved in the realization of this project. Next slide, Danny. Yes, so basically this documentation and analysis of experiences is part of a program between the German cooperation and ECOWAS, where DIZ has been commissioned to support regional agencies in charge of renewable energy and the power sector to provide technical assistance for improving the legal and regulatory framework for grid-connected renewable energy in the ECOWAS member states, technical assistance for actually grid-connected RE project development, and documenting and analyzing the experiences with RE flagship project, which is the topic today, and regional knowledge and exchange and capacity building of the different stakeholders involved in the region. Next. So as a bit of a background, as I was just explaining earlier, is that the regional renewable energy policy of ECOWAS that was adopted by the ECOWAS head of state in 2013, among many other targets, has the target of grid-connected renewable energy to reach 35% of the regional energy mix by 2020 and 48% by 2030, as in renewable energy, including large and medium hydro. But if we take the non-conventional renewable energy, which is mainly wind, solar, bioenergy, and small hydro, the objective is to reach 10% of the renewable of the global of the regional energy mix by 2020 and 19% by 2030. So this translates to about 2.5 gigawatt by 2020 and 7.6 gigawatt by 2030. And if we take stock of the projects that are actually installed in the region as of today, we have about, as of December 2017, we have about 170 megawatt that has been installed and that is online. Out of this 170 megawatt, you have 27 megawatts, which is basically all in Cape Verde, and you have about 125 megawatts that is of solar PV that you can find between Senegal, Ghana, and very recently also in Burkina Faso. Next. Next, yes. Thanks. So the flagship projects that we have covered that we have documented and that we are disseminating through case studies that are published online in a link that will be shared at the end of my presentation are basically the first grid connected, utility scale grid connected renewable energy. And by utility scale, we mean any project that is 275 or let's say 300 kilowatt and up, and that is providing electricity to the grid. And the project that we've chosen are basically the very first project in the region, starting with those that are listed so in this list. So the Santiago and Sal solar PV power plant, which were installed in 2010, the electric wind project in Cape Verde, which is a wind project in Cape Verde, which was installed in 2011, the Kubelik wind project, which was commissioned in 2011 and 2012, two phases, and which we will have a very detailed presentation from our colleague Anna, and the Navrongo solar PV project in Ghana, which was commissioned in 2012. Also, we will have a gas project in Burkina Faso, which was commissioned in 2015, and we have also covered the first three IPPs in Senegal that were just commissioned this year and last. And we think that these projects, because of the diversity in terms of the ownership structure, the development structure, and the different size that they've had and the different technology mix that we have, it will provide a lot of very useful information for all the stakeholders involved in grid-connected renewable energy project development in the region. And we don't intend on just stopping to those, but we also would like to cover more new projects like the Zatuli project in Burkina Faso, probably, and the bioenergy project in Sierra Leone. Next. Next. I cannot. next slide, but I'm okay, all right. So I think what we've presented. So we apologize again for the internet in case from internet that we're having. But so I will present a proposal. So we will start with the very first project in the region, which is the solar PV project of Sal and Santiago that were commissioned in 2010 and that are owned by the of Cape Verde. And these two projects have basically been financed by a soft loan from the government of Portugal to the government of Cape Verde. And there was an EPC contract, which was the EPC contractor was Matifier Solar, because at the time the contract, the loan contract, basically had a premise that it would be a Portuguese firm that would be doing the EPC contract, and operation would be done by the public utility, which is under a concession agreement between utility and the public government. So this project is quite interesting in the fact the soft loan allows the government to be able to procure a solar PV power plants, two solar PV power plants at costs that were quite competitive at the time in 2010. Although there have been some issues with the operation of the power plants due to many factors, which we will see in the next slide. Please, next. All right. So basically, what we've been able to cover in the case study of Santiago solar power plant is to look at the generation aspect of that project. Which is quite good. Capacity factors of solar PV power plants are usually it made a lot of sense, that project to be performing well during that year. However, after the first year of operation, there was quite a lot of degradation in the production, and as you can see, from 2012 to 2016, the performance ratio of the power plant has gone down, the capacity factor has gone significantly down, and thus the share of solar PV penetration in the grid of the Santiago island of Cape Verde has gone down. A similar aspect has been also seen in the Sal power plant, which is a smaller power plant of 2.2 megawatt, and that was also installed at the same time of this project. So, the operation of this power plant has been degrading. Besides the fact that there is a lot of dust and soiling that is happening, and which would force the operator of the power plant to clean a lot more often than was expected, and even when you clean frequently, the soiling effect is coming back very fast, and cleaning a 5 megawatt power as often as easy. Another factor was that there was, during the contracting period, the EPC contractor, which was Martifer Solar at the time, was commissioned the plant. There was no, operation and maintenance contract of a term to support the operator to be able to fully carry all the operational aspects of the power plant, and which led to basically some faults in the operation of the power plant, which did not allow for the full production of solar PV power. So these are some of the things that we've seen in also the Navrongo solar power plant, which unfortunately also has not been able to perform as well as it should be. So it's an important lesson is to always procuring a solar PV or utility ensure that there is enough for the EPC contractor to also have an operation and maintenance contract for a significant time before handing it over to the owner of the power plant. Another aspect we can see next, please. Next. Yes, so basically these are some of the experiences that we've seen, but also one of the reasons was also the contractual relationship between the government of Cape Verde, which was the owner of the plant, and
thank you, Mohamed. Thank you, Mohamed. Sorry, but we are facing some problems with your connection. Sorry to the participants, but our colleague Mohamed is now on a field mission in Senegal and has tried to connect, but we have also a plan B, and his colleague, Mr. Lucius,
could not at their full capacity at some time.
Is also with us, and
yes,
will continue.
Okay. So could not be used.
Yeah, in theory, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Lucius Maratash from GIZ seconded to ECREEE. So I will take over from Mohamed. We've been working on this together. So Mohamed was talking about the contractual relationship between the owner of the plant, which is the ministry, the government of Cape Verde, represented by the ministry responsible for energy, and the EPC contractor, which was complicated by the fact that actually there are three parties involved. The owner, the EPC contractor, and the national utility as the future owner of the plant. So addressing, once the plant was handed over to the operator, Electra, it was difficult for them to address some of the issues that they had with some of the unresolved technical problems with the contractor because of this tripartite relationship. So at the end, basically a plant that was not 100% technically functional was handed over, and some of the issues could not be addressed and have not been addressed by the contractor at commissioning or in the period after commissioning. Another issue that Mohamed mentioned is the operation that was not as good as it could have been, and this was partly due to the fact that the two plants were not cleaned as often as it would have been useful, and that not all the spare parts that would have had to be exchanged were installed in a timely manner. It has to be noted, though, that since recently, the two plants, Electra is cooperating with third parties for the operation and maintenance for the two plants. So in the one on the island of Santiago, here next to the capital, they're cooperating with the Center for Renewable Energy and Industrial Maintenance, CERMI, which is performing some of the operation and maintenance services as a subcontractor. And they're cooperating with a private company, APP, for the SAL plant. And this, they're encouraging signs that this is improving the operation and maintenance. Another challenge that they faced was that on the SAL island, sometimes there was not enough thermal generation capacity to balance the fluctuating output of the solar plant, which forced them to also curtail the output of the plant. Briefly, we would also like to talk about the Navrongo solar PV project in Ghana, which is a 2.5 megawatt solar plant, the first utility scale plant in the country, which is a project of the state-owned Volta River Authority. That's Ghana's generation company, main generation company. It was the first project under a larger renewable energy program of the utility, which also includes other solar PV projects and wind projects. VRA used a competitive process for selecting the EPC contractor, and this contract also included the O&M during the first 6 months of operation. The project was developed in two phases. First, 1.9 megawatt peak, which have been commissioned in February 2013, and an additional 600 kilowatts was installed a few months later. The plant is being operated by VRA. Some of the experiences with this project are that the competitive procurement allowed them to minimize the capex, which for today's standards is really still high, but for the standards of 2013, it was within what is common in sub-Saharan Africa. One of the other challenges was that some of the transmission infrastructure to evacuate the power from this site, which is at the northern, in the extreme north of the country, at the border with Burkina Faso, was not ready at the time the plant was basically ready for commissioning, and that they faced some security issues during the construction period. So good community relations and an adequate security concept are necessary to avoid such problems. Briefly, we would also like to introduce the Faso Biogas project in Burkina Faso, which was the first grid-connected biogas project in the ECOWAS region. It has been commissioned in 2013. The current installed capacity is 275 kilowatts, but they are in the process of doubling the capacity. The plant is installed in the center of the capital, Ouagadougou, and it was funded by Dutch entrepreneurs with a grant also from the Dutch government. And with local partners, and it's fully operated by a local team of experts from Burkina Faso. The plant uses the waste from the nearby slaughterhouse and also waste from a brewery. Both are located in the vicinity of the biogas plant. And the plant is also producing organic fertilizer, which is a major source of revenue for the owners of Faso Biogas. So this is briefly some information about some of the plans or some of the projects we are covering. This is basically the main features of these projects, and the main lessons learned that we could identify are captured in a series of case studies that ECREEE is publishing. The first case studies are available for download at the link that you see on this slide. So far we have the English versions of the first 4 case studies ready. 3 others are almost ready and will be published on the same site soon. And we are also in the process of translating these case studies to French and Portuguese. So thank you for listening, and I give the floor back to Danny.
Thank you, Lucius and Mohamed, for this presentation. So now Ana will present the Kubelik wind project in Cabo Verde. Please, Ana, the word is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. And my name is Ana Monteiro. I'm the head of Environment, Social, and Administration at Kubelik. And first and foremost, I would like to thank ECREEE for giving us the opportunity to present our project during this webinar. This year, our company celebrated its 5th year of operation, and during the celebrations, our CEO presented a similar presentation as the one I'm presenting today, entitled Kubelik's Contribution for the Objectives of Cabo Verde regarding Renewable Energy. And it's meant to give a summary of our route from the beginning of the inception of the project to the current date. So Kubelik by now is reasonably known within the sector, within the region, as the first large-scale PPP wind project within the region. It's a 4 wind farm project located in 4 of the islands of Cape Verde, with an installed capacity of 25.5 megawatts distributed within these four islands. We are currently providing an average of 22% of the electricity consumed in the country. And due to the pioneering nature of its accomplishment and also this high penetration rate, and also particularly the factor of providing clean energy to a country that once depended almost 100% on diesel. For these reasons, it has received various international and domestic recognition and awards. Basically, just to give a background, this project was first or came about through aspirations of the government itself, which had previous experience with a smaller project of grid integrated wind energy, basically a donation of the Danish government that acted very much as a pilot project. And throughout 10 years, a decade after the first project was implemented, the government was looking to increase its wind energy installed capacity, and it tried through various attempts to do this, but for various reasons was unsuccessful. And this is when it invited Infraco Africa, which is the developer, to present a project that would be interesting for the country. The developer, in fact, throughout various preliminary studies that we will probably talk about in the next slide, proposed such a project, and in 2008 a public-private partnership was signed between the developer, which was Infraco Africa, the government, and Electra. In 2010, Africa Finance Corporation and Finnish Fund for Industrial Cooperation joined as investors, And also in 2010, loans were secured by the European Investment Bank and the African Development Bank. And the project finance was based on a 30% equity, 70% debt ratio, regarding a total investment of roughly 60 million. In 2016, the investor structure changed a bit, with Infraco selling its shares as part of its usual business plan, selling its share after the project was stable, which was purchased by AFC Equity, which is a subsidiary of Africa Finance Corporation, thus consolidating even further the majority shareholder stake, which is Africa Finance Corporation. As I was stating, during preliminary studies and throughout the development phase also, various studies were conducted, as is normal. This is a pioneer project in the region and in the country. Never before in the country had such a large wind project been installed, so there was various new grounds to break. So the main studies conducted were the dynamic analysis of the electrical networks to determine how much intermittent wind energy could be injected in the grid safely. Also demand studies and growth forecasts to predict or to kind of indicate what type of capacity would be sustainable. Also, as I was mentioning, being a new type of project implemented in the country, there are various frameworks that were not in place to accommodate this project, and so in terms of particularly legal aspects, and even technical and financial, and even in some cases environmental, in terms of the standards implemented, we sought international specialized consultancy to advise on the proper route to take. So since its inception, its implementation went through obviously the execution of various contracts. The main ones being, of course, the power purchase agreement with the utility, which establishes the conditions of delivery and sale of energy. Which also establishes the technical parameters, the take or pay limits, the prices of the tiers, etc., and also the delivery point itself. Another important contract was the EPC with Vestas, which establishes all the details regarding the construction and installation of the project itself in the 4 islands, including deadlines for completion. The service and availability agreement, also with Vestas, is a current contract that we have with the supplier for maintenance and particularly availability of the equipment itself. So this contract establishes the maintenance regime and the guarantees of the service provider to the company. So during the construction and also the operation phase, which began in, well, let's say the operation phase beginning in 2012, but even before, we had the initial challenges revealed through the normal conduction of even the construction, particularly the construction, but also the beginning of the operation phase was very critical in revealing the challenges. During the construction, we had various challenges to do with the transportation of the equipment themselves. We had problems with, let's say, ports, the depths of specific ports such as Boa Vista, which could not accommodate large ships, but we needed large ships to bring in the large equipment. Things like that, which were very basic. Also, in terms of still in the realm of transportation, we couldn't find cranes that were up to standards and big enough to install the equipment themselves. So we had to bring in special vehicles with the equipment themselves, just to transport the equipment to the locations and then to install them there. All of these were challenges that had impacts later on in the total cost of the project itself. Also, one challenge that I did not that I hadn't mentioned yet was the fact that during the operation phase there was a learning curve to adapt to diesel-based system from a almost 100% diesel-based system to a mixed system. You know, and the players had to be comfortable dealing with high penetration of intermittent energy in a fragile grid. So this slide basically gives an overview of the commissioning of the different wind farms. So there are 4 wind farms in the 4 islands: Santiago, São Vicente, Sal, and Boa Vista, and the ones in Santiago and São Vicente were commissioned in 2011, while the Sal and Boa Vista ones were commissioned in 2012. During the operation phase, we hold a very close relationship with the utility, both at the technical level and the financial level, to work through issues pertaining to the wind energy delivery itself. This is basically done and has been done until now by manual dispatch. So it's very important to maintain a very close relationship with the utility and the operators to be able to iron out any wrinkles or doubts or technical issues themselves, to be able to attempt to maximize our penetration. This graph gives an idea of the energy available given the conditions, good wind and technical conditions of the equipment versus the actual energy produced. As you can see, there's a gap, and this is caused by limitation, which are due to various reasons, but which we are continually trying to resolve and to limit, to reduce, in order to be able to maximize the capacity of our wind farms. On the right-hand side corner, we present a bit of some interesting numbers. Although we have this gap in the energy available versus energy produced, we are still averaging a penetration rate of 22% within the country in terms of the electricity consumed in the country. So we're contributing 22% of the electricity consumed in the country. But also some interesting facts to give an idea of how daring, let's say, that we alongside the utility company are going in terms of the record monthly penetration. We have had 55% in Sal and record instant penetration which isn't as strong as the monthly penetration in terms of giving indication of how far we can reach in a stable manner. But still, it's an interesting number, which was reached in SAL, I believe, in 2015, which is 65%. So 65% of the entire SAL electricity consumption during a certain day, during an instant period, was being produced by Kubelik. In total, we've produced more than 440 megawatt hour, and we've avoided 300,000 tons or more than that even, of CO2 equivalent, and we've sold about 140,000 CERs, which are certified emission reductions. This graph gives a bit of an idea of the seasonality of the wind regime in Cape Verde. As you can see, it dips substantially during the summer months, and the take-or-pay is based on this seasonality, which is also coherent with preliminary wind studies conducted prior to the installation of the project. The economic benefits of the project, most particularly, we can point out that throughout most of the operating years, wind price has been lower than the conventional production, and this has been affected recently, since beginning of 2015, by the drop in oil prices, international oil prices. But our prices also have been affected by limitations, considering that there are tiers within our PPA, and so the amount of energy that the utility takes will also affect the average price per kilowatt hour. Another important economic benefit is the fact that the dispatch of wind power saves the utility company in terms of imported diesel, and we've estimated that yearly or annually the company helps to save roughly 15 million liters of diesel per year, which also reduces the country's sensitivity to commodity prices. Another important benefit is that, as if we consider it a very important benefit, is that with this investment, the country was able to have implemented in the country a very important project of high public interest with no public funding at the time of the implementation, and currently the government has a high level of debt, and it's important for us to know that this project was implemented with low impact in that respect. In terms of environmental and social responsibility, besides the amount of CO2 avoided, the company, due to its nature and the nature of its investors and also its lenders, is very conscious of our carbon footprint, and has also invested significantly on conservation project and environmental education project. One of which, in fact, is a renewable energy and energy efficiency project that we've implemented in fourth grade for fourth grade students, which is we implemented it together with ECREEE at the time. Another important factor here is that we've had 0 accidents throughout all of our construction and operation phase, which we are very proud and intend on continuing to have this number. In terms of new investment perspective, a lot of people ask us, many people ask us, what are the next steps with Kubelik? And it's very difficult to say at this moment, as I showed in the slide regarding energy available and energy produced. We still have a gap to fill and to maximize our production. So this is basically our main concern at the moment. We do think that our company, looking in the future, will obviously want to grow, but these depend on many critical factors, such as demand forecast. For example, in Sal we have a low demand, and we need to understand the future in terms of demand growth in order to understand where and when new projects are of interest to the country itself. As I mentioned, we're trying to maximize existing wind energy available. We know that the government has implemented from now on tendering processes, so it is up to the government to decide really on the projects that they want to have implemented and to launch these tenders. And these things we must wait to see and to try and encourage, or to try and participate in new projects of the future in the country. And of course, there's available technology as well as another factor that we have to consider, considering that our equipment that we use now, the Vestas V52 850 kilowatt, is no longer being produced. So we have a whole kind of concept now to understand how we would implement new wind farms with new equipment, and how this would affect all of our maintenance regimes and our control. But these are challenges that we will of course surpass. In terms of key recommendations for other countries looking to implement or looking to replicate this project, I would just point out the factors that in fact have been of enormous importance to our success. So one of which was the political will of the government. Without it, a lot of people say how fast the project was implemented and how clear and transparent it was, and this could not have been possible without the political will and the government support. A long-term offtake agreement, which is essential to ensure predictable and transparent cost planning. Stable and reliable energy supply, which is, in our case, due to our wind regime, was a factor that we were dealing with, and we had the benefit of having. Other countries without such stable and reliable wind would probably need to look to invest in things that we haven't invested in so far, such as storage, right from the get-go, etc. And my final recommendation, as in Cabayolica, we have 10 staff working on the project in Loco, and all of which are Cape Verdean. This has helped to retain the know-how here in the country. Our staff are continuously learning is an important factor in terms of sustainability of the company itself, to have local people working in the company. I think that's about it, and I thank you for your attention. Daniel?
Thank you, Anna, for this interesting and complete presentation of the wind energy project in Cabo Verde. So now, as the next point of the agenda, it is some time. Now we have 10 minutes finally for questions and answers. So at the moment there is no questions, but we are going to wait some minutes. So please, you can write a question by selecting the question pane on your screen, and then you can just write your question. well, during we wait, let me also inform you that here we have displayed again the link where in the ECREEE website where you can find these documents, the flagship projects. In this link, you will find PDF documents to download, and also you will find a link to the specific ECOREX entry to where you will find the location of the project, of the plan, and different information. And you can also interact with the data. Okay, we have one question from one participant. The question is: given the decline in the CER price, how do you rate the cost benefit of incurring the cost of registration as a CDM project versus CIR revenue? I think it's a question for Anna.
Yes, this is an interesting question that we also were we had to think about during our at the beginning of the operation. We had already invested quite a bit in the registration process. It didn't go through the first time because also we hadn't completed the project, so we had to wait and then restart again, which incurred more and more costs. And finally, about 4 or 5 years after we first began trying to register, we were able to register. By then, we had spent roughly 200,000 euros in the process. So it is. We were in fact lucky to be able to find a long-term buyer. For us, we overcame this, and that initial cost has been paid off. But it is a challenge for new projects coming on to deal with this, especially if it's a small project. Here in Cape Verde, the other wind farm company based in Santo Antão asked us how the process was and if it was worthwhile for a small company. We mentioned the value that we had spent in registering and the challenges, and that company understood that they would not go through with the process. I mean, the CDM project is supposed to aid clean development projects. So if it doesn't make sense financially, then I think that projects, and I would say that projects should think twice about registering, considering the price. And I think that projects themselves know this. It's only beneficial if we can make, or the UNFCCC can restructure the program in order to benefit the project. So it's not. I wouldn't say it's a solution for all projects, particularly small projects.
Okay, we have also one more question for Anna. Is the growth of tourism in Sal and the related electricity demand growth already resulting in less curtailment? Is this expected to solve the curtailment problem in Sal in the near future?
Yes, we've noticed less curtailment from last year. Not significant, but less from last year to this year. But more than the tourism problem, or the tourism growth, let's say, not problem. More than the tourism growth, we need the developments to actually integrate the grid for it to be effective in terms of demand for us. Many have their own electrification systems due to their needs to be sustainable. I'm talking about in terms of large resorts, for example. But yes, we expect that we expect two things to happen in SAL that will improve the demand. One is the growth of the tourism sector, and the second is which is apparent nowadays as well, is the quality of energy. Less cuts, less interruptions, in order for the resorts and other large investments to be able to trust the grid and connect directly.
Thank you, Anna, for this answer.
Yes, and then just to say that these are the things that we expect will solve the curtailment problem, at least decrease the limitations.
We have still 3 minutes for more questions. We have a new question, is what are the expected benefits from the planned new dispatch center?
Well, since the project started until now, we have had manual dispatch, which we're quite impressed with, considering that this is done manually. The technician will go into the Electra station and check on the forecasts sent by Cabeólica, check the diesel systems themselves, check if it's night or day, if the solar plants can contribute, and make decisions also based on our contract, etc. Make decisions on an hourly basis, let's say. So we expect that the dispatch center will help in terms of making this a little bit easier and faster, in terms of also making the change in set points more frequent, and this will of course benefit Cabeólica if we can shorten the times also that the set points can be changed to increase if there's enough wind, if the wind has changed since, and increase the penetration of wind. That's only going to benefit us.
Thank you, Anna, again. Well, so it's 1 hour now. Thank you very much to everybody for the participation. Don't forget that we are going to make available soon the video of the webinar, and we will send to registered participants by email. Sorry for the internet connections of my colleague Mohamed. And that's all. Just to remember that during the next year, we will continue with new flagship projects. We will translate, you will find these flagship projects also in French and Portuguese, and we will work to present new projects, new ones. And as well, we will organize future webinars to continue sharing this information with the interested stakeholders. So thank you very much in the name of my colleagues too.